This is the absolutely minimal example of real-time Django and Django Channels app that uses WebSockets. These integers are generated on Django side and then are sent via the WebSocket protocol to the page. This is the synchronous code that can handle only one client. If I open the second tab and try to make a request to the URL address, I can't get the page, but the first tab, the first pipe, is still working without problems. So it's synchronous code, and also it doesn't use Redis at all. But nevertheless, it's the minimal example of a real-time app that uses WebSockets and Django channels. As you can see, the page is not reloading and I'm doing nothing. There is no events except the data that are coming from the Django side, and it's the only event. Django channels, it's an advanced topic, so I assume that you know Django core very well. If not, consider watching my Django 3 tutorial. Okay, let's do it. First of all, I want to create a basic Django project with one app and one template. So I have to install Django first. And now I want to create a Django project. Let's say it'll be the real-time project. Then I want to create an app. Let's say it'll be the integers app. And also let's apply migrations. Okay, we can start the Django development server. And we can see Django welcome page. Okay, now on the level of the manage py file, in the root real-time project folder, I'm creating the templates directory. And inside the templates directory, I want to create a template. Let's say it'll be the index.html. Basic layout. And also I want to use bootstrap styles. Get bootstrap.com, copy this link and paste it here. Django doesn't know about the templates folder yet, so in the real-time project child directory in the settings py file, I want firstly to append the installed apps with the integers app, and also the templates list, it's dirs list, I want to append with the base dir global variable, and I'm calling its join path method and passing into it the templates string, the name of this folder. Then I have to define a route and a view that will handle requests to a page, to the index page. So I need the root URLs py file, and here I'm creating a new URL pattern, the root URL address, and this pattern will include the integers folder and its URLs py module. And I want to import the include function. Then, in the integers folder, I have to create the URLs py module. And the handler for all requests to this URL address will be, let's say, the index function that I have to import. From .views, import index. Dot means the current folder, the integers. And then I have to define the index function. in the views.py file, I am defining a new function. And the render function will render the index HTML file, and the context dictionary will have the text key and some value. I have to save urls.py, and in the index.html file I want to use my hello world. It's a basic bootstrap layout. Let's test it. I have to restart my server. And again, hello world. Okay, it's working. It's the quite typical Django project, very basic application. And the next step is to install the Django channels and integrate it to the project. Let's install it. Now I have to append the installed apps list with the channels app. So I need the settings by module again. And somewhere here I'm appending the channels, comma. Then I have to modify a bit a definition of the asynchronous application that's defined in the asgi.py model. And also let's look at the visgi.py model. And we can see that the content of these two files is almost the same. So I need the asgi.py. This file is generated by Django and it doesn't use the Django channels yet. So first of all, I have to import the protocol type router class. So here from channels routing import protocol type router. And the application variable will be an instance of the protocol type router. The protocol type router takes a dictionary as an argument, and this dictionary will have HTTP key. And the value of the HTTP key will be the returning value of getAsgi application function. Okay, I defined the application variable, now I need to use it. So in the settings.py file, I'm scrolling down until the definition of the visgi application variable. Now I'm copying this line and replacing visgi to asgi, and the path to the application variable will be real-time project folder, asgi module and the application variable. And now we can start the development server again. And we can see that the asynchronous server was run. Our app is still working. Okay, and now let's define a WebSocket, a router, and a handler, like we usually do with the core Django apps. Let's start with the router. We can define it in any file we want, but the preferred way is to create a special routing.py file. And I want to create it in the integers app folder. Routing.py. And the idea is absolutely the same like for the core urls.py files. So I need the path function. From Django urls, import path. And let's create a list. Let's say it'll be WS URL patterns WebSocket URL patterns list. And it will have only one element for this project. I'm calling the path function as usual. And the first argument should be a URL address. Let's say it'll be WS WebSocket and some URL. And the second argument is the handler that will handle all requests to this URL. In Django core, such handlers are called views, as you know, but in Django channels they are called consumers. So let's say that the handler will be WS consumer class, and I'm calling it as ASCII method. So let's import this class from .consumers module, import this class. The dot here means the current folder, and in the current folder I have no consumers.py module, so let's define it. And here I have to define my WS consumer class. It should be a subclass of at least WebSocket consumer class, and I have to import it from channels, generic, WebSocket, import WebSocket consumer. My class will be a subclass of the WebSocket consumer class. And a path for a while. We will back to it a bit later because I need to use these WS URL patterns list. Let's open again the ASCII.py file, and here I have to add the second key to this dictionary. The second key will be WebSocket, and the value of this key will be an instance of the auth middleware stack class that I have to import. So from channels auth, import auth middleware stack class. And as the argument, the auth middleware stack class gets an instance of the URL router class. URL router. Let's import it too. And in its turn, the URL router class gets our WS URL patterns list as an argument. WS URL patterns that I have to import from integers app routing module import WS URL patterns. Here, first of all, Django Channels check the type of the connection. It checks the protocol type, whether it is an HTTP connection or a WebSocket connection. The WebSocket, it's a different protocol. It's not HTTP, it's WS protocol. If the connection is the WebSocket connection, it will be given to the auth middleware stack class to identify a user, like Django does with its own auth module. After that, the connection will be given to the URL router class that passes it to the consumer that was defined in this URL patterns list. That's it. Let's back to our WS consumer class, the handler of all requests. And in my WS consumer class, I have to override the only one method. I have to override only one method because it's the minimal example. It's a demonstration. So connect. And here I have to accept the incoming connection from the client, from the browser. So I'm calling the accept method. self accept. The connection is accepted and established, so I want to start messaging to the connection. I want to randomly generate integers and then send them in a JSON object. So let's import. I need the JSON model. From random model I need a rand int function, and from time import sleep. And here I'm starting a for loop for I in range 1000, for example, and then I'm creating a dictionary with a message key, for example, and the value of the message key will be the returning value of the rand int function that will randomly generate integers from 1 to 100, for example, and then I have to pass this dictionary to the JSON dump s to dump string method. It will return the JSON object that I want to send. Self send. I'm calling the send method. And then I do an awful thing. I sleep 1 second. I do it because it's just an example. So the send method will send the JSON object to the opened connection, to the other side of this connection, to the client. That's it with the server side. Now I need the client. So let's close it, routing, settings, and I need our index.html file. First of all, I want to add an ID to the h1 header, and ID, let's say, will be app, just app, and then I need the script block here, and here I have to define an instance of the WebSocket class. I'm creating a new variable, the socket, and I need a new instance, new WebSocket. And then I have to pass into the WebSocket constructor a URL address to send requests to. And the URL address should be the same as the one that I defined in the W URL patterns list. So it should be WS WebSocket, different protocol, local host 8000, and then this part. I forgot the trailing slash here. It will cause an exception. So paste it here. Please don't forget trailing slashes. Then I have to define an onMessage attribute. It will be the method, the function that gets the event from the browser. Event, it's an object that browser will generate. And then I want to get the incoming data. So I'm creating a new variable data, JSON parse, and I get the data attribute of the event objects. Let's print it. Console log data. And then at last I want to get the h1 header by its ID and change its text. So document query selector app ID, and I need its inner text property, and the value will be my data variable. It's a dictionary, it's a JavaScript object, and it has the message key because I defined it here. Message key, message. Let's test it. Let's restart our server. Doesn't work. Let's test it. Unexpected token. Instead of semicolon. Okay, again. F5. And it's working. It's a very simple app, but it's a real-time app and it uses WebSockets. So, if you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.